Welcome to Great Minds with Lost&Found, the podcast that connects people and reimagines systems to improve mental health for youth and young adults. I'm your host, Joel Kaskinen. Lost&Found is a comprehensive nonprofit organization that aims to do more to eliminate suicide for youth and young adults in the United States. Now that you know who we are and what we're all about, let's get to the show. Hello and welcome back to Great Minds with Lost&Found. Today's conversation is being recorded during the week of Veterans Day and features veteran and Moms Demand Action volunteer Patty Mayrose and the state chapter lead for the South Dakota chapter of Moms Demand Action, Emily Thomas. So welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Let's start with introduction. So Patty, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about your connection to being a veteran and mental health, as well as your connection to Moms Demand.
Sure, thank you. My name is Patty Mayrose. And first of all, I'm a mom. I'm mother to 7 children. I am a veteran. I spent 5 years as an Air Force medic and then spent an additional 19 years in the Guard and Reserve, retiring from the Army Nurse Corps. For the last 30 plus years, I've worked as a nurse at the VA hospital here in town. So just want to make clear that what I say today is my own opinions and not necessarily, the VA's opinions, but it gives me in close contact with veterans every day. So I joined Moms about 5.5 years ago. I had a young adult family member who was able to purchase a weapon from a friend, no training, no instructions. And about a year after that, had an accidental discharge. He thought he was cleaning his weapon, had not cleared it properly, and shattered his femur. So luckily, he's gotten over that, but it could have been much worse. Although it was a serious accident, it could have been much worse, He could have killed somebody else by accident as well. So that's what got me involved in Moms Demand Action. Shortly after that, I saw them at a tabling event and inquired about information. And after joining them and getting involved, there's lots of reasons that actually anybody, we say we're Moms Demand Action, but we have a student section, we have young adults, we have men who are part of Moms Demand Action. So we'll take anybody.
We're mothers and others.
Mothers and others, that's a good way to say it. But I got involved in Be Smart, which is their educational aspect of Moms Demand Action, where we just promote proper gun storage and safely storing your weapon. I'm amazed at the number of individuals who I talk with who just talk about that. Yes, I have a loaded weapon in my house, but my kids know not to touch it. Your children may not know to touch it, but the neighbor's children or your grandchildren or children, that sort of thing. But like I say, after being involved with Moms, I was amazed at the number of people who are involved with it because they've lost family members or dear friends to suicide. And what a big issue handguns are in suicide.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for sharing and introducing yourself. It sounds like you have quite the robust history and story, and I'm just so grateful that you're here. So Emily, if you'll go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners and just share how you got involved with Moms and your connection to mental health and suicide as well.
Yeah, so it's hard follow-up following Patty. But so Emily Thomas, and I am a mom. I have three children. And my oldest child was a freshman at Harrisburg High School, and there was an active shooter when he was a freshman. And at that point in time, it only happened, you would hear about the school shootings, and it would happen not here. And so when it happened that day, I'll never forget. It was the worst day of my life, and just hearing that there's an active shooter in your kid's school and not knowing if your kid is alive, and not knowing if, like, I just remember saying, what did I say to him? Did I tell him that I love him? Like, I may never get to talk to him again. And that feeling of hopelessness was horrifying. And luckily, no one was killed, which was amazing. And so for the longest time, I did not give myself permission to really think about it, because it was, no one was killed. So I didn't think anything of it. Like, oh, okay. But then a couple of years later, after more and more of these shootings took place, I realized I was kind of starting to get numb. And I just remember thinking to myself, this is not okay. I can't get numb. Like, this is not okay. And so at that time, I saw a tweet, a Moms Demand Action tweet. I had no idea what it was. And so I clicked and I joined and got very involved, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was just interested in learning more, and how can I be part of the solution, and how can I help so that no other person ever has to feel that sense of dread and hopelessness that I did. And I shortly thereafter became the chapter lead, and
Which we're thankful for.
still learning. So that was 2019 that I decided that being numb is not going to help, and I wanted to do something. And so, yeah, becoming the chapter lead basically means that we've got local groups all throughout the state, and we have volunteers all throughout the state who are interested in also being part of the solution. And so we do monthly meetings, we provide education, it's a sense of coming together and trying to work to end gun violence. I mean, it's Moms Demand Action. We're underneath the Everytown for gun sense, and that's kind of what Moms is under. And then Patty explained one of the components that we do with moms is the educational and the awareness. And one of those programs is the Be Smart program, which is all about secure storage of firearms. And then we also work with campaigns, and then we work with legislative issues. So trying to make better, safer gun laws. We're working on, universal background checks. And, so someone can't just go purchase a gun without, being
Right.
fully able to own it, and handle it, and be responsible and take accountability. So there's a lot of different aspects. Moms Demand is nonpartisan, but we have several members of. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are, who you are. We have so many,
Very
so
diverse
many
group of
diverse.
individuals.
Yep, we have so many gun owners, and it's just, it's everybody. Because gun violence is not a stray bullet doesn't know who you are or anything like that. So, yeah, it's kind of what we do and who we are.
Great. Awesome. Well, I invited you both to have this conversation today, specifically because it's the week of Veterans Day. And I know, as a Moms Demand Action volunteer myself, and not being a mother, but also being a survivor of gun violence myself, and having friends and family members who have died by suicide or other forms of gun violence, I know the work that you all do to kind of create protective environments around safe gun ownership and responsibility, especially for at-risk populations like veterans. So I've asked you to have this conversation with me. We Through this podcast, we have a series going on right now, and we are focusing on the CDC's 7 prevention strategies that are outlined in what is known as the CDC Suicide Prevention Technical Package. And one of those strategies is creating protective environments. And so I thought you all were the perfect fit to discuss what kinds of work we're doing to create protective environments for those at risk of suicide. So I want to jump into the programs and services a little bit that Moms Demand Action offers, as well as the VA that you work at as a nurse offers in terms of supporting veterans. So let's start, Emily. We're going to just kind of dive in a little bit more to some of those programs and services that Moms has, and then I'll go to you, Patty, and we'll hear what the VA is doing.
So I guess our biggest, like I mentioned, the Be Smart program is the program that really emphasizes secure storage. It encourages people to model the securely storing your weapons. And what that means is you have your firearm and then you have it unloaded and locked away from ammo, if possible, of course. That's the ultimate. We know that having a firearm in your home triples the risk of suicide. And we also know that if you take a moment, a second to have to unlock it, that 1 second has been shown to save lives. And we also know that firearm, you don't get a second chance if firearms are means. And so just securely storing that weapon, that gun, can literally save a life within, I mean, it's 1 second that can save a life. So we really talk about that. We know there's different aspects for that. Mental health is obviously something that everybody talks about. And I mean, we hear that from even our politicians, right? It's like, oh, well, no, it's not a gun problem, it's a mental health problem. But they work together. I mean, you need both in order,
Right.
you need to fix both. If you don't have access to a mean, then it's so, your mental health instability at that moment, you're still going to be able to live for the next moment. But if you have that means and that access to means,
it's very
won't.
lethal.
It's very lethal.
Effective, unfortunately.
And so, but in addition to that, it doesn't just affect people with mental health. It affects, like Patty said, kids. We have so many kids right now that are, I mean, kids don't have a fully functioned brain. They are very impulsive. We live in a society of instant gratification.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if that's out there and it's, sitting there, it's just an impulse. And so a lot of kids, die by suicide. A lot of kids right now, unintentional shootings have gone up. You hear about so many siblings that, get into the closet because they knew where mom and dad hid the gun. And it's just really sad, and it's preventable. Right. So that's also another very important thing of what we talk about is all of these things are preventable.
Yeah.
And with moms, a lot of times, we start talking about things, we can see the shields go up. And I have family members and the shields go up. And what I've learned is people are conditioned, I guess. And, everyone thinks or believes that we are just out, Moms Demand Action is just out to take everyone's guns away. Absolutely not.
Right.
We, like I said before, we have gun owners, we have, hunters, like it's huge. Like, everyone has a gun, everyone, especially in South Dakota,
Yeah.
it is a way of life. Like
gun, it's multiple guns.
Right. And we are not against that at all. We are just against, not taking accountability or not taking, just being safe about it. And like, we just want everyone to know that. And yeah, we know that like hunting is a huge business. It's very important. And so we just want to make sure that is out there. And then, just meeting people where they are and having conversations. I learned, like when I first started, I was not aware that suicide by a firearm was a form of gun violence.
Mhm.
I had no idea. And I think so many people think like, oh, it's just, it's in the cities, it's in the big cities, it's just on the streets. And it's not. And in fact, in South Dakota, our our highest form of suicide is by firearm. And that's like 80%. And that's terrifying. And so I kind of rambled on there. So Be Smart is a program that works to educate and just really creating that awareness. Like it's not just on the streets of a big city. It's happening everywhere. And for us, a lot of times it's happening in our rural areas by our older white men. And it's again,
Right.
it's preventable. So these little things, it's slacking it up.
Right.
And that can save a life. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's amazing.
And with the Be Smart program, what that is, it's designed for adults, and it can be anywhere from a 20-minute to 40-minute slideshow presentation, that we adapt to our audience, to who we're speaking about, but mostly just to stress how you secure your weapon. We also do tabling events where we hand out cable gun locks, and just try to educate. The cable gun lock is the simplest and least expensive,
Mhm.
but you can go from gun cases to gun, locked safes, that hold from one gun to many, many weapons. And so we just try to educate adults, because really it is the adults that are responsible
100%. Yeah.
for securing their own weapon.
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we should say Be Smart actually stands for something.
Yes.
So
I was going to ask.
Yes. The acronym.
yes. So the S stands for securely store your firearm. The M stands for model that behavior. So you're actually securely storing your firearm. The A stands for ask. And that is,
Yeah, I'd forgotten.
that is, I mean, to be honest, the first time I did that, it was terrifying because like I said before, all the, people get very defensive when anything about guns is brought up. And so my youngest daughter was going over to a sleepover,
Mhm.
and nowadays I don't know who these parents are anymore. And so I had no idea. And so I asked them, I just said, do you have a firearm in your home? And is it locked? And you can do that in so many ways that, it doesn't have to be hard. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is so hard. But what would be harder would be to have a funeral for my daughter. And then I would never,
Yeah.
I would regret not taking that. I mean, that's stupid.
Right.
So just, asking about it. And okay, you have one. Great. It's fine. And then you can just make an informed decision about that. Because I think a lot of times too, when you yourself are a responsible and you store your firearm securely, you might think that everyone else does, and that's just not the case. And so that's what makes the asking part so important. And then the R is recognizing the role of firearms in suicide, which, as I said before, in South Dakota, that is very, very high. And then the T is just tell others about it as well.
Right.
So yeah, be smart.
Yeah.
Be smart, people.
That was, as my children are all adults now, I never even thought
No.
to question. I mean, when my oldest children were in high school, in the parking lot, every truck had a firearm
Yeah.
on the rack.
Yeah.
So it was just something that we are not accustomed to doing, but it makes a lot of sense just because the easy access can cause accidents or,
Mhm. Yeah,
preventable suicides from happening.
right.
Well, thanks for sharing about the Be Smart program.
Yes.
Obviously, we are all part
Yeah.
of this and we
Yes.
know kind of what it stands for, but our listeners, that was one thing that I wanted to make sure that they got was understanding exactly what it was and what it means and what it stands for. That's really, really cool. Is there any like final thoughts on programs, services, support that you offer through Moms Demand before we jump into the VA stuff?
I could say the educational portion of it, and that there really is a place for anyone in your audience. Um, to be, like I say, I like the educational part of it, and I love tabling, going out and just meeting people and just talking to them.
Yeah.
But some people, that is not where they feel the most comfortable, but there is also the legislation portion of it, and just different parts that you can always find something that you feel comfortable helping with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Along with the Be Smart program, it also kind of goes hand in hand with school safety. And so we are currently working on, just getting this information out to parents of students, because we also know that most of the school shootings are they happen because the shooter either takes the gun or has access to the gun of a family member or a friend that is unlocked. So it's very important that, as many people know, we do just awareness of, the police, the Sioux Falls Police Department is
Right.
behind the Be Smart program. They have seen an uptake of guns stolen out of vehicles, and then you don't know who's getting that gun, and all of that. And so just literally just locking it up can save a lot of lives, and it's pretty easy to do, and you don't have to get rid of it. Just lock it up. But yeah, it's just the awareness part of it, and just normalizing. If you have a gun, it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can still have one, and you can still be a smart, secure storage proponent of it. You can have both, and I think that has been lost in translation.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of what we're out and about doing.
Love it. Great. Well, let's transition into, Patty, your work with
Okay.
the VA and the services and resources that you provide to veterans, obviously, as it relates to gun safety and suicide and mental health. And
So, my experience at the VA has not been in the mental health. I've worked in various clinics, inpatient wards, but it does take me into daily contact with veterans. And unfortunately, veterans do have a much higher than average suicide rate.
Mhm.
So mine is just being part of the mental health, or excuse me, of the medical part. Mental health is just as real as physical health.
Sure.
And like I say, veterans do have a much higher rate of suicide. The VA takes that very seriously. They've made that one of their goals, is to reduce veteran suicide. And the last years that I have statistics for are from like 2019, 2020, and our numbers are actually going down,
That's great. Yeah.
but they're still much higher than they need to.
Sure. Sure.
And unfortunately, veteran suicide by methods, the numbers that are actually using weapons is rising. So although the number of suicides is down, they're using firearms, which is a much more lethal,
Mhm.
like she said, you don't get that second thought
Yeah.
to take it back, as you would by other means of suicide. And veterans are, some of the reasons that veterans are at higher risk, um, obviously individuals have risk factors that can make it much higher likely that they will attempt suicide. Depression, substance abuse problems, anxiety disorders, which PTSD falls upon. But there's environmental factors, people who have been exposed to others who have committed suicide.
Died by suicide.
Yeah, died by suicide. And I do know several veterans who have been friends who have committed suicide. I was never deployed to a combat zone, but that obviously that increases people who have been at a much higher risk for PTSD from that. They've been around weapons, they were trained to use weapons. Um, so the availability is just so much there. But also older veterans are at a high risk, and some of that is, chronic health issues. Older adults with chronic health issues that they feel that there's just no pain relief, their quality of life isn't good. They sometimes will attempt to suicide, and there's so much that really can be done about it. The VA, like I say, has really made its mission to try and decrease veteran suicides. Some of the things that are available, and we do have them in town, is there's vet centers around. And vet centers are places where veterans can go to just talk to other veterans to discuss it. And, they can get comprehensive services as well for counseling and all that. And to find a vet center, like I hear, you can Google it, Vet Center Sioux Falls, and it'll come up with their information. You can also go to www.va.gov, find locations that will tell you. Vet center call centers that are manned it's 877 and then war dash vets. So 927-8387. You can always call at, day or night. If you're in a situation where you're not feeling safe, always call the the hospital. After hours, you'll get the emergency room. During business hours, you can just ask to speak to a mental health provider. We do have a suicide prevention coordinator, and that's her whole job, is to help coordinate resources and help individuals that might be at higher risk to just do that.
I know around the country, they are currently doing kind of like a pilot programs for veterans with gun shops. And I thought, after I listened to this kind of a webinar about this, I thought, oh, how amazing would that be to bring to Sioux Falls? And it's basically you're able to bring your firearm to a gun shop. They have like lockers in there, and it's just a place to store while
We
you
do
need
have
to.
it here in Sioux Falls.
We have that at
Right. So one of the places that I was able to found the Alliance, which it's a military heritage organization, but they do have a gun range and gun storage. So, and it's they'll store your weapon really for any reason. If you just don't have a secure place at home to store it, if you're a snowbird and you don't, or you're selling your house, but also if you're experiencing some mental health issues. So the Alliance here is just right off Russell Street. They do have it. They have a pricing, and it's $20 for the first month and $10 thereafter. But they said, that can be waived, especially for mental health. They do not want
That's really cool.
the cost of storing it to be any reason that someone would not store their weapon. And it's very easy. You just meet with them. They kind of discuss with you why you're wanting to store, your weapon. If it's just that you need a short time because you're selling your house and you don't want the weapon in there, you come in, you ask for your gun back, they give it back. It's for, however, though, that you've expressed to them that you are kind of struggling now. If you walk in and say, I want my gun today, right now, they've been in the military, they understand this. They might just say, let's have a Coke. And, do you really need your gun? What's going on? And though they're not in the mental health business at all, they can direct you, to do that. So it's just a really neat program. They have a number, which I can give you, but you just pick a time, you bring it to them. They do like you to kind of fill out a little contract just to, first of all, so the people don't just forget that that's where they've stored their gun and 2 years later your gun's still sitting in storage. But it's very simple. It saves lives, and it just protects you and others that you care about. And a lot of people think that if someone is at risk or in a mental health crisis, that you don't want to talk about suicide. And that's not true. Talking about suicide is not going to increase their risk. But if you can let them know, I say a lot of veterans have a lot of weapons. They like their weapons and they're afraid that they're going to be taken away. So, if you could just suggest, why don't we get your weapon out of your house? You still have access to it, but just giving that extra step of having it secured
Totally.
gives someone the chance to get the help they need. And, just that extra step can mean the difference between life and death. And I'm sure other gun ranges could potentially have the same services, but especially for veterans, the Heritage Center, if you haven't been there, it's a great center. They have a restaurant, they have meeting rooms, so they just have a lot of things going on. But it's not open just to veterans. It's open to anybody in the community. It's a really nice community resource. So,
Great.
Yeah, anytime we can get more and more places to store, a firearm, that'd be amazing.
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you both for sharing resources and support opportunities for veterans from both of your organizations. I want to kind of switch gears here a little bit and look at the current situation that we're facing with gun violence. I've heard people say that there's no point in keeping lethal means away from someone thinking about suicide because that person is going to try to find another mean or another method. Research obviously suggests
That's
that
different.
that's not true. So we've talked about that a little bit. So I'm just curious from your perspective, why do you think that it's important to ensure guns are not accessible to those having suicidal thoughts? And I was going to ask for resources, but we just gave that away. So
Well, like I said before, and like what you just said, if you have the means right away, you don't get a second chance. Very often if you use a firearm. And then the data shows that those that survive an attempt usually go on to not try again. And so it really, really is important to have that access limited and to, make everything just that one little step. I mean, that's everything. So that's right.
And we've talked a lot about mental health with suicide prevention, but also with the mass shootings that have taken out. A sane person doesn't do that. It's someone who is in a mental health crisis. Unfortunately, most of the mass shootings are by young male adults who have had some mental health, sometimes long-term mental health issues. And part of the Moms Demand Action is that we would like to see some, universal background checks so that you can't just go to a gun shop and buy, I know there's a lot of semantics about automatic weapon, semi-automatic weapon. But when you can purchase a gun and walk out of the store with a weapon that can fire as many bullets as fast as you can pull it.
Yeah.
It may not be an automatic weapon, but it can do a whole lot of damage. And by having some universal, background checks, could help prevent some of that violence. Or, also an individual in crisis,
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
having a cooling off period of a couple of days to
Mhm.
purchase a weapon.
Yeah. It was interesting. We were able to have a veteran do I mean, you were there, Joel.
Mhm.
He talked to us about just just different aspects and different things about veterans and the usage of firearms and all of that. And my dad, hi dad, um, was on there, and he's a vet. He was a vet in the Vietnam era, and uh, it was interesting having a conversation with him because he had mentioned it is so different now. And when he was in the military, you got a firearm and it was yours and you knew everything about it and you were responsible and you knew how to clean it like in your sleep. And it was just, you knew the serial number, and it was very like you were very responsible. You were responsible for your one, if you discharged, like you had to account for all that. And what he said stood out for him now is you can just go to, he said Target and you get a gun, which I don't believe that's true, but I don't know. I don't want to, yeah. But anyway, he was like, you can just go anywhere and just buy one. And you don't have the training. And he said, we trained so much. We knew these firearms back and forth. And now you just, there is no
You can't just
training,
buy them from.
and you don't need a permit here. You don't, so it's, I would love, my 14-year-old had to go through driver's ed and a long process and then take a test and get the hours. And then you get a driver's license and then you register your car. And I think that would be, I know that is not a common thing, but it just, to me, if you're going to have, something that can cause so much damage so quickly and so deadly, I just really feel that it should be, and this is me personally speaking, you should be trained on it and have the background check
Yeah.
and the waiting period and all that. But yeah.
So Moms Demand Action is an army of volunteers, mothers and others. I love that phrase earlier that you used, who are advocating for gun safety. And they are not typically accepted or welcomed into the views of people who think that you are trying to take guns away or advocate for gun control. So, Patty, as a veteran, I assume that you've had some very interesting conversations with people that
Yes.
you work with or that you are connected to from your past or present. I'm just curious, can you share from your perspective as both a veteran and a supporter of gun safety and responsible ownership, just, like what your thoughts are and especially regarding mental health, as you've spoken to a
Okay.
little bit, and, your background as a nurse too, and an Army medic, or Air Force,
Air
excuse
Force,
me.
yeah.
I'm curious your perspective, your thoughts on this.
Well, it is, like I say, one of the things I enjoy is tabling events because you do get to get with one-on-one discussions. And this summer we had an event. It was in different neighborhoods just to have police presence and firefighters, and just the things, actually mental health, things in neighborhoods to allow just more visibility and stuff. So we were at an event with police officers, and there was a police officer that was like, "Oh, no, 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 you know, you wouldn't want my comments." And he was also a veteran, and it's like, "No, exactly, we do want your comments because we want you to know we're not against the Second Amendment." I mean, I personally don't have a handgun in my house just because I have a child with disabilities, and I think that the risk of accidental harm is greater than what I
Sure.
personally would need to. I got a dog, he'll take care of it. But that sometimes veterans and police officers or other people think that they have the wrong impression
Mhm.
about Moms Demand Action. That I've gone to the Alliance and used their range. It's fun, but it's a very safe environment.
Yeah.
So I just want to let people know that no, we're not here to take your weapons. We really aren't. Um,
You're not,
we
we hate the word control.
right.
It's not gun
Right.
control.
It's not
No,
gun control. We
gun
just
safety.
it's
Their
just a lot
responsibility.
of us who have been in moms are either one tired of the mass shootings, and as parents, I mean that's how it originated is after one of the school shootings, a mom just like you said
Mhm.
got tired of being numb
Yeah.
and started moms. But it's a lot about education
Yeah.
and just getting the proper legislation to make weapons safe.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah. To make people safe
to make
from
people
them.
safe.
Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I invite veterans.
Yeah.
Come join our group. We'll probably have
But
that information. Our meetings, you can just Google once again, Moms Demand Action, and you can find our local chapter and where we meet and all that stuff. But we invite, first responders, police officers, veterans,
everybody.
anyone. Because some of those people have some of the highest stress jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
And, and as a first responder, police officer, firefighter, they're also the ones that have a lot of firsthand experience
Yeah.
with responding to some of the unfortunate events, accidental discharges, suicide attempts, any of those. So we really invite them to come join us because it is a misconception. We're not out to take your guns.
Yeah.
We just want you to be safe.
Yeah, I just really wanted to drive that point home for our listeners. I think probably most people listening to our show, given the world that we work in as mental health and suicide prevention, are probably, in the understanding of we're not here to take your guns, but we're trying to promote safety. But I wanted to just make sure that we drove that point home.
Yeah.
I've got a couple more questions for us. I know we're running short on time here, but thinking about systems like the mental health ecosystem, healthcare, medical, all of that. Just thinking about systems in general. How has your work with Moms Demand Action and experience in the military informed both of your views about mental health? Just in general, your views.
Do you want to? Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, like I say, mental health is part of your overall health.
Mhm.
And because of the stressors of being in the military, that a lot of our veterans have done it, there used to be a huge stigma. If you were on active duty and you were having some PTSD, you surely didn't let your first sergeant know
Yeah.
because, you didn't have it. Now it's, they've realized that that caused a lot of problems. It caused individuals to bury their symptoms or not report it, not get the help they want. And I know on active duty, suicide is much higher than they would like, and they want to work with you.
Mhm.
Right now, thank God we're not in a conflict anywhere around the world. But we still have people on active duty. They do have stressors. And just to really stress, that it's okay to get help.
Mhm.
We would much prefer an individual reach out, because not only is it, dealing with war, but being in the military can be very difficult on marriages, long separations, being apart from your family, a lot of things where there are resources available.
Mhm.
With the veterans, they have the Veterans Crisis Line. Um, every time you call the VA now, that is one of the first numbers they will give you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that if you are a veteran in crisis, dial this and they will get you to the resources that you need. I have a crisis number here that it's the 1-800-273-8255. And you press one and it just walks you through getting it. Uh, so, veterans, there's kind of a brotherhood, and I'm using that as a female to be very inclusive. But so I didn't serve in combat, but every person who raised their hand and took their oath, we've kind of been through the same basic training, some of the craziness that goes on of hurry up and wait. That's endemic in all of the military. And you have some shared experiences.
Okay.
So you do have a camaraderie where you want to look out for your fellow veteran. And all I can say is, if you're a veteran and you're having issues, please, the help is there. If you're a veteran and you have friends who you're wondering if there's, speak up to them, talk to them, let them know that you're there. I apologize.
It's okay. I would say for me, when I started working with moms, we are very much, there's so much training and so much education that we get. And my eyes were opened. I had no idea about any of this. It was always something that was never talked about. It was never, like you said, the stigma. And so it's been so interesting and so informative and a blessing actually to be able to learn everything. And then as the chapter lead, I sit with Joel on the Sioux Falls Suicide Prevention Task Force. And I think what's so great about that is you have so many different people and organizations who are all trying to do the same thing. And it all needs to work together. I mean, you work with, the mental health side of it. We work with, let's make sure that the means aren't there. And so it does take everyone. And yeah, I've been very appreciative of all of the things I've learned and all the people I've met, and that's been amazing.
Definitely. All right, we're going to round things out with one final question here. As we consider what's happening in our country today, including but not limited to the recent election, where do you see things moving in the right direction in terms of protective environments?
So I am very hopeful at this moment. We have, for the first time, we just had an election, obviously, and there were 19 to 20 gun sense candidates who had to agree that, like, yes, we need to do something. Like, we need to do something that is going to help save lives. And that is very hopeful. That gives me a lot of hope that we have people out there. There was also a recent survey that was done, a poll taken. It was a sample, and it talked about just different laws. And the question was asked about a red flag law, increasing the age to buy a firearm from 18 to 21, secure storage, and a background check, universal background check. And I was incredibly, I just got so much hope from seeing the results. The people of South Dakota want that.
That's awesome.
And I hope that our legislators actually look and see what the people want. 70%, and this is all, like, this is everybody. 70% wanted the red flag law to keep people safe, knowing that it's just a temporary hold, it's due process. So yeah, I mean, I think, I do feel that there is a lot of attention being brought to it. There's a lot of, like we're trying to do, educate and get people together to have conversations, because nobody is pro gun violence. I mean, I firmly believe that.
Yeah, sure.
And it just takes us all to work together to figure out what that means. So I'm hopeful.
Great.
One of the things too, I think it's not an all or nothing. Over the past several years, I have written, our national congressmen, our senators, and I always get, thank you for contacting me, and they all list how very pro-gun they are. And so it's just educating them that, like I say, it's not all or nothing. Unfortunately, there are huge lobbyists that have supplied a lot of money to campaigns, that are all like, oh, we don't want any gun laws. And it's like just balancing it, a nice balancing act where, yes, individuals do have a protected Second Amendment right to own a weapon, but just as a safety measure, we should have some common sense legislation that just helps protect
Yep.
the people. If you're someone who should not have a weapon because of your criminal background or some mental health issues right now, so denying someone who has a criminal background and shouldn't own a weapon by having a background check, that keeps the weapons out of the wrong hands.
Yeah.
It doesn't keep a weapon out of the right hands.
Sure. Great. All right. Well, as we end, I just want to make sure that we're plugging both Moms Demand Action and the VA. So where can people find these two resources if they are looking for more information?
So momsdemandaction.org is where you can look and find information. There's a place where you just go on there, you can look for events and you can put in our state. And we have an upcoming meeting on Sunday at the downtown library at 2:00. And
Join us.
we would
please.
love to have you. You can just learn momsdemandaction.org.
Great.
So our local VA hospital, they do have Facebook pages. We're in the phone book. It's just very easy to look
Is
up
there
Sioux
still a
Falls
phone?
VA. Yeah, and no one has a phone book anymore. But Sioux Falls VA, our main contact number is 605-336-3230. And, then that will get you to the VA. Please, if you're ever in crisis, either contact the crisis line, or if you don't have that number ingrained in your phone, you can call the VA number and get help 24/7. And it, just please ask for that. And like I say, we have a Facebook page, an internet page that talks about how to contact mental health services. And we just ask that people contact us.
Yeah. I would also say we would love to have as many people join us as possible, to make a difference, to save lives. So another way, and I forgot about this, if you want to text READY to 64433, that will get you into contact with Moms Demand Action, and you just fill out a interest form, and we'd love to have you and start making a difference with us. And like we say, we do it one conversation at a time.
Right. Absolutely. And today's conversation is the start of that. So
Yes.
all right. Well, thank you both so much for being here. Listeners, if you are a veteran in crisis, or you know of a veteran in crisis, or just friends, family, loved ones who might be experiencing some challenges right now, I want to make sure that we do our due diligence, and we also plug 988, the National Suicide Prevention and Crisis Helpline. So that is available 24/7, and it is 3 digits, just like 911. It is the easiest way to get access to gain access for care if you need it. So thank you both again so much for being here. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed this conversation for Veterans Day. We really are trying to reduce suicides for veterans. So that is our mission
It
today.
is, yes. And thank you to all the veterans listening for all that you do, and that, how you serve our country. So very appreciated.
Thanks so much for listening. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review Great Minds wherever you listen to your podcasts. For more information about Lost and Found, go to resilienttoday.org. That's RESILIENTTODAY.org. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube @Resilient Today. Until next time, do more and stay well.